Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Apologies from Steve. A friend of his passed away, and he's helping out the family today. Wasn't able to get to a coffee shop as he had thought he would. We're going to continue today with where the group left off last week, and but I mistakenly did not ask Madalena to send last week's text as well. So I've asked her now to put it in the chat box.
Okay, give me just 1 minute.
Sure, okay. And I'll reiterate where we are in the book of Tobit. This man has suffered quite a bit. 2 weeks ago, we saw him in deep prayer and wanting to die, not knowing what would be the future, and at the same time, that very same time, a woman named Sarah, and we're not sure what the connection between the two of them are. That will come clear as we read onward. Um, okay, and I see Les has put last week's text in the chat box. So that's also good. And I think maybe we have a problem with numbering. Last year was, no, last week was chapter 4, and I think you put 3 in. Yeah, so yeah, last week was chapter 4. In any case, there's this kind of get together of father and son moment, which you all folks did without me most of it last week, and I understand you paused at verse 14. So we're in chapter 4, verse 14. And before we go on with that section, I brought a little bit of rabbinic literature or early Jewish literature from Deuteronomy onwards. Were there any questions or any comments that people wanted to make, at least that they remembered they wanted to make from last week? Okay, then. We're in the sheet that Madalena just put in the chat box. Apologies that you didn't have it to print up yet. So if you want to put it up on your screen, it starts with Tobit expecting to die, chapter 4. It's on the second side, and we're on 14. Can people handle that, or do we need to put the text up on the screen? Okay, we're good. All right, then. So, Les, do you want to read for us from 14?
Do not keep over until the next day the wages of those who work for you, but pay them their wages the same day, and let not the pay of those among you be delayed overnight. Your pay will not be kept over if you serve God faithfully. Watch yourself, my son, in everything you do, and discipline yourself in all your conduct. And when you hate, do not do to anyone. Do not do to anyone. May no evil go with you on any of your way. Give some of your food to the hungry and some of your clothing to the naked. Give all your surplus as alms, my son, and do not let your eye begrudge your giving of alms. Pour out your food and your wine on the grave of the righteous, but do not give it to sinners. Seek advice from every wise person and do not be disdainful, since any counsel is useful. At all times, bless God and ask Him that your ways may be straight and that all your paths and plans may prosper. For no nation has good counsel, but the Lord Himself gives it. Whom He wants to, He exalts, and whom He wants to, He casts down to Hades below. So now, my son, remember these commandments of mine and do not let them be erased from your heart.
Right there. I think there's one thing missing from this list of different commandments, right? Of wisdom, the sunscreen. He didn't remind him about the sunscreen. Um, Interesting collection beforehand the paragraph beforehand, which you did last week, the last part. There's another selection of different commandments. A moment of wisdom, of passing over wisdom because he's expecting to die. He's giving over the wisdom to his son. Interesting why different commandments were picked out as opposed to others. You'll notice there's nothing here about keeping Shabbat or eating kosher, things that became major issues from a Jewish identity point of view from the rabbis going forward. Um, what else stands out? What's before we get to the part that's in bold here? What
What's
do folks find?
Rabbi?
Yes.
Yeah, it seems to me that it's a repeating theme here about wage theft. It's in the Tanakh, it's in the Christian Bible, and it's here in other ancient literature. Was that a big problem at the time?
What? Oh, wage theft. Yeah, interesting. Well, yeah, it's already it's in Deuteronomy and Leviticus.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's today as well, isn't
Oh
it?
yes, yeah, yeah. Yeah. But I'm just saying that all these different religions all seem to emphasize that that is a real bad thing to do.
Yeah, and theft might be an obvious thing, right? But this is, of course, is just another version of theft, but it's one that
Right.
it's less black and white to people, right? Well, I'll give you your pay. Just wait till tomorrow. Um, this is a really interesting thing. I will say that as somebody who worked in nonprofits in Israel for years, if you did something and the nonprofit was supposed to pay you for something, whatever it was, whether you were a purveyor of food or whether you gave a lecture, you would wait for months and months and months for this. And I made a policy in my own nonprofit in Rikma, the fellowship program that I did. I said, we're not doing anything if we don't have money in the bank. And so when somebody would come to give a lecture, the check was ready for them on that date. Never send me the documents, all the different kinds of things that people will do. Yeah, I think it's a tendency. It's a worldwide tendency of taking advantage of the worker. Um, yeah. Okay. But
Yeah.
here it's just
Um,
one more thing. But here it's
yeah.
also meshed with if you do that, then you too you'll receive your sachar, your salary, your benefit, your wages from God. Yes, Don.
I was going to say in business, when bills from people who rendered service came in, well, we were told to age them, um, not to pay them right away.
Yeah.
And I almost got fired by paying them right away. I mean, as they were received. Um, but they even bought me a folder with months so I could advance the bill to
Uh-huh.
the time frame they wanted it paid.
Yeah.
That, but it's a form of not letting people have their responsibilities met by the income they earn because it's being held up.
Yeah. Yeah. And the system supports it, doesn't it, with the 30 days, the 60 days thing, because of credit and because of money, mortgages, everything, the whole system, our financial systems support this kind of problem, but also make possible building of buildings, I guess, and getting projects done. Anything else on this particular issue of the wages? Yes, Rita Claire. Just
I
need you
seem
on
to
stage.
recall a time, and I could be mistaken, if somebody would help me out with this. Wasn't there a time when your first week's wage was somehow held?
Yeah. Yep.
What was the rationale?
I don't remember, but I just remember that I see that you're agreeing with me, Dawn.
Yes, on the new employment, they always held back a week of wages, and the excuse they always gave to me was that was a time period of them doing a background check. So as if there was something lied about on an application or falsified, that they would be able to terminate the person.
Okay, but looks like Richard did not encounter this in the film business.
Yeah, I never encountered that in payroll, but I will say this, that when a company or an individual agrees to a payment structure, they've agreed to it. I wouldn't consider that wage or theft. It's when you're underpaid, where a company rounds down on odd hours rather than rounding up, which is the rule. It's where when a person earns PTO, personal time off, or other types of compensation, and if they leave the company, it's not paid to them. That's what wage theft. I mean, at least in the modern times, That's what real wage theft is.
Mhm.
What about taking a position higher than the one you have and not getting paid for what the position should pay until 3 or 6 months down the road?
If it's agreed to, it's agreed to, but if it's not, then it's wage theft.
Well, you have no choice. You either would do it or you,
Well, no, then you do have a choice. The choice is not to do it. I'm just saying that.
Yeah,
Not-
Yeah.
the system.
Personally, I wouldn't consider that wage theft if somebody agrees to something.
I encountered something very different in working for Xerox, and it's called we're going to cap your commissions. And no individual can make a commission check higher than this. When in fact your agreement said you are going to be paid by a formula, 1% or 2% of whatever your. And when that number got too big, they would say, we won't pay you because we're going to cap your commissions. And I always thought that was theft. But
Yeah.
I realized in moving here, first of all, you get paid twice a month. I don't know if that's everywhere. In Israel, you get paid once a month, and salaries were often late in nonprofits. That I know in general, because the nonprofits hadn't raised the money. It's all these kinds of situations. But here in California, though, the law is very strict, right? People get into trouble for not having payroll on time. Correct, Richard?
yeah,
Yeah, you can wage theft. I'm saying it happens all the time in California. It's a serious offense if a business engages in it. And that's why they use complex formulas to pay people. But it does happen all the time.
Uh-huh.
I was just involved with my friend who had a problem with her business because her payroll company put a wrong formula in paying her employees, and they wound up being underpaid for over a period of 2 years. And she was very quick to correct the problem because as soon as it was discovered. But you don't have to get paid twice a month, Rabbi. You can get paid every week, once a week, bi-weekly. A company can choose whatever formula it wants to use,
Uh-huh.
and then it must be consistent with that formula.
Okay.
yeah. I've also believed that if somebody doesn't pay me the wages they owe me, and they keep it for 2 years and pay me after 2 years, they have earned interest on the money that didn't pay me, and they owe me that interest also. I've
That's true,
always
they do.
believed that.
And how does that work out for you, Ajit?
Has never worked out for me. But I believe that.
Yes, less.
Of course, Tobit says you have to pay daily.
Yeah, and that's the understanding in Deuteronomy and Leviticus as well. That was the system was based in that yeah, these complex systems we have. Look at they led to communism, right? They led to revolutionary ideas because of the whatever the system is. Okay, so a lot of talk on that. Interesting how much talk that's generated amongst our group here.
Such excitement, such excitement. I haven't seen such energy before.
Yeah, okay. Let's get to the and I want to say I think that it's emphasized here as well because part of the story is Tobit who hasn't been rewarded by God in the fair way, in the Deuteronomistic way. He's been the guy, he's done the job, but he's running around blind from bird, poop. And then comes this issue of, well, it'll come up in a second, but this idea of punishment, reward and punishment, good behavior, bad behavior, God as the wage giver, perhaps. So let's go in order of the text as long as we have. And what you hate, do not do to anyone. Sound familiar to people?
golden rule.
Do unto others.
Yeah, except for I learned in my research preparing that there is such a thing as the golden rule. There's also the silver rule. This is not the golden rule. The golden rule is how it's put in Leviticus and how Jesus puts it in Matthew and Luke. Quoting that is that do unto others as you would have them do unto you, is in the positive. The negative, don't do to others what you don't want done to yourself. That's called the silver rule. Epis. I don't know who gave that decision in the history of research of literature, and it turns out it's all over the world. It's not just a Middle Eastern thing. It's not just an ancient Near Eastern thing. He has two or three quotes from Confucius, from other Asian sources as well. It's just all over the place. I guess because it makes sense. I guess it's and yet you need to be reminded of it all the time. The question might be, what works better, the negative or the positive? If you would, Les, if you could just go down to the Babylonian Talmud, to one of the more famous passages from the Talmud.
There was another incident involving one Gentile who came before Shammai and said to Shammai, "Convert me on condition that you teach me the entire Torah while I'm standing on one foot." Shammai pushed him away with the builder's cubit in his hand. This was a common measuring stick, and Shammai was a builder by trade. The same Gentile came before Hillel. He converted him and said to him, "That which is hateful to you, do not do unto another." That is the entire Torah, and the rest is its interpretation. Go study.
Okay, famous passage for our non-Jewish participants. This story, there's a series of stories there, but about Hillel and Shammai, who were historical sages around the time of Jesus. I once read a study comparing Jesus's quotes, what are known as Kvelum, the original quotes believed by some to be the original quotes that are taken from the Gospels, that all the Gospels can agree upon, of Jesus's actual historical words, and comparing them to Hillel's words in the Talmud as well. Don't remember too much of it. It was in the early 90s that I read it, heard the presentation. A friend of mine did that research. But this idea here that flipping it, we all thought all the years learning this, look at that. Hillel, he flipped into the negative, the positive of the Torah, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, and love your neighbor as you would love yourself. And then suddenly here, so my first thing was to say, oh, look at that. This must be the precedent for Hillel from Tobit. Not necessarily that Hillel read the book of Tobit, but maybe, or this is the first thing. But then it turns out that it's all over the place, right? It's nothing original. Somebody wanted to say something. Sorry.
I was going to say to you, I'm sure you know this, that some churches use a Bible called the Red Line Bible, which they say is, and I've done this exercise, is if you take the Red Line Bible and just take that as red line verses, you wind up with about 2 pages worth of what Jesus really said.
Yeah. Yes, I have seen. Rev Kev loves to tell me when it's a red line verse, when something is a red line verse. My good friend here, Rev Kev. Okay. Anything else on any other ideas about the positive, the negative, just in general how we look? I know that when I was younger, especially, it was important for me to do things in an altruistic way, right? People would say, so are you involved with AIDS, HIV/AIDS because you had somebody in your family who died of AIDS? And I wanted to say, no, silly. It's because it's the right thing to do. It's nothing personal. Or are you so involved in advocacy for the gay community, David, because you have a brother who's gay or an uncle? No. It turns out in the end, I found out I did have an uncle who had been closeted all of his life who was gay, but it had nothing to do with it. I want to do it for the right reasons. Or what some people now look at all these verses that I've been emphasizing in the Torah portion this last week. You have to be kind to the stranger, to the foreigner, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. That's a negative way. Is that negative or is that positive? I guess don't be unkind would be because you suffered from that. But it feels like, no, I guess not. All right, I go back on what I said. Negative, positive. Not sure which tactic works better. Megan, you could tell us in therapy what you find works better to work on people.
Negative
characters. You don't have to tell us. I'm saying you could tell us. Okay. All right. Okay. So that's the hate and the silver rule. Then we get to this part here, giving food to the hungry, and you had that last week, the issue of giving alms. This is a little bit. This is reiteration of part of it. You saw last week from the wisdom of Ben Sirah and also from Mishnah Avot, which is around the time of Jesus. The oral traditions are certainly quoted from rabbis, sages that lived at the time of Jesus. But now this expands it to the food and the wine. Does stand out to everybody? Anybody here? Pour out your food and your wine on the grave of the righteous. Ring
It's
a
like
bell,
a
Tim?
toast. It's like a toast.
Except for it's forbidden according to the Torah
Uh,
because it's worshiping the dead, right? It's worshiping the deceased. And that's a strong tendency amongst people all over the world, I think. But this worship of dead, in other words, they'll do good for if you help them out because they still
Uh,
need to eat, right? All the traditions that have food that's left in the grave, left on the grave.
so you're equating pouring the wine as worship?
It's part in biblical thought. Yes, no, on the grave, not pouring the wine in the cup, on the grave. But I will share with you that I once went to an independent cemetery in a kibbutz. When I had a member who lost her husband, they were both hit by a car. Horrible thing. Elderly people, no children. She was an artisan, and I drove her out to this, an hour away from Tel Aviv with traffic to this cemetery, and she wanted to walk around a little bit because there were different kinds. It wasn't a uniform uh, headstone, and she wanted to get a feeling to be alone with her husband at his grave. And I noticed a young woman who was tying a dream catcher into a tree above another grave. And she wasn't reaching it. And I was taller than she was. So I went over. I said, "Let me help you tie this." And but before that, I had seen a man with a sports car who had parked near there with a lounge chair that he took, or one of those chairs, foldable chairs, and had a glass of wine in his hand. And so, and that was before. And so I said to this young woman, I said, "Is this a relative of yours?" "Yes, it was my father. My father died just a few months ago." And there was no stone yet, right? And but there was a stain of wine there. So I said, she says, "Yeah, it's his birthday today." So I came back. So I said, "Oh, do you want to tell me a little bit?" I could sense that she wanted to talk, and so she's talking to me, whatever. And I said, "There was a guy here a half an hour ago before you came who was drinking wine, and it looks like he poured some out here." She said, "Oh yeah, that's Shmulik, whatever his name was. They always drank wine on the front porch on his birthdays. Their birthdays, they always drank wine together." So I thought, how touching that is, right? I didn't see anything wrong, idolatrous about that, right? Just a touching kind of a point. Um, Another interesting aspect of that story is when I got up to leave, I said, "Listen, my name is David Lazar. It was nice to meet you." Which is, "Oh, I know who you are. You were my teacher. You were my teacher when I was in 10th grade." Okay, all right. I had no recollection. Okay, so the pouring out of the wine, an interesting aspect. And how do you pour bread exactly? So the text may be a little jumbled. He goes on quite a bit about this, what it means, but is it absolutely a negative thing to appear as if you are feeding the dead? Um,
Yeah.
in classical biblical thought, that's not all right. But we don't know. There are a lot of things from the Torah that are not mentioned here, that are not mentioned in other apocryphal books. We don't know how much of the Torah was actually kept. In fact, there's an archaeologist who's been speaking publicly in the last few years in Israel, who claims to show. I didn't read the studies, I don't know myself, that the whole idea of keeping kosher, for instance, although it's written in books hundreds of years before, it wasn't actually kept. It wasn't observed until after the second century BCE. And that's an interesting thing. Archaeology can tell you, are there pig bones or what kind of shellfish are the remnants of in the fires and that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Okay.
Rabbi, can I add something to this? Um, in Christianity, there's often this thought that the greatest teaching of Jesus is about where he talks about doing unto the least amongst these, etc. That Matthew chapter 25, I think.
Right.
And a lot of this is exactly what is in that text. I was hungry, you did not feed me. I was in prison, you didn't come to see me, etc. Seems to be exactly almost identical to what we're reading here.
So do me a favor, write that down and let's ask Steve next week
Okay.
because I'm not in a position to answer. Yes, Don.
We're talking about the individual pieces of this section, but what still impresses me very much is the relationship of this father and son. I think back to my own dad. I never had a sit down like this with him. I think it was more of a process of observing of what he did that made an impression on me rather than a sit down talk like this.
Right.
I think this kind of surfaces the neat relationship between a father and a son.
Yeah. And those of us that study Proverbs together, we're almost at the end. We've been studying for close to a year and a half. We see a lot of that language of father, also mother, father and son,
Rabbi, you're gone.
conversations about. But Don, absolutely right. I think many people, many of us as teachers or parents, we're imparting our wisdom more than with words, with our deeds, with how we act as a personal example, right? As role models. Well, famous story about somebody, a Hasidic rabbi, and somebody said, what did you learn from that Hasidic rabbi? He says, well, I would watch him tie his shoes. I'm getting the story wrong, but because watching the righteous person tie his shoes is Torah as well. Okay. Look at it in medical education, right, Les? What would you say is the percentage, you could break it down, how much you actually learned from reading and lectures compared to how much you actually learned in doing together in your rounds as a student?
Well, the maxim is, was it learn one, do one? No, see one, do one, teach one.
Uh-huh.
And that's all. That's not from a book. That's from doing something. It's how you learn the practice of medicine.
Yeah.
But basically, in medical school, it's usually 2 years of basic science and 2 years of clinical. But then you have to do 3 years of clinical to get a license.
Right, but in those 2 years, part of it is also on bodies, right? Is dissecting?
Cadavers. It used to be. Now I'm sure they use computers.
Okay. But only because it's doing as opposed to words and thing. Interesting stuff. I dedicated a year of studying a fellowship in the late '90s to how do rabbis, counselors in youth movements, parents, neighbors, how do they how does role modeling function in creating, in passing over wisdom and knowledge and things like that?
Just to add to that, though, that if you write down what you've heard in a lecture or notes that you've taken, and you write it down or type it in a formal way, within 24 hours, you're more likely to remember it than if you go back a week or two later with your notes and try to reconstruct it.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
You forget most
joke.
of what
It was a
you've
joke. It
heard.
was a joke. I didn't write it down.
I see.
Okay. All right. Anything else, folks, on this last section here? It's reward and punishment. There's a lot of that going on here, right? And he's encouraging. Okay, so let's get to just want to finish it off. The last part of this chapter, verse 20.
And now, my son, let me explain to you that I left 10 talents of silver in trust with Gabael, son of Gabrias, at Ragus in Media. Do not be afraid, my son, because we have become poor. You have great wealth if you fear God and flee from every sin and do what is good in the sight of the Lord your God.
Well, suddenly this is kind of like a turning point in the whole story, isn't it? Right? All the bad stuff suddenly. Oh, by the way, there's I forgot to tell you, there's a bank account in Bermuda or wherever, where someplace far away, there's the money is waiting. That leads into the next chapter of what's going to happen. And again, it's not about the son collecting the money that is not owed, but belongs to the family, as much as it is, will God allow that to happen? And that's where the good behavior stuff comes in as well. That's why he prefaces everything. In many ways, this is kind of like, these ethical wills that there are tradition. They may be in all literary traditions, but in the Jewish tradition, there's such a thing called an ethical will. What people write to their kids, document to their kids other than the will that divides their possessions, their physical possessions. And these things are combined together. All these things, this wealth, that actual wealth you'll have, but by the way, you've got to do all these other things first. You've got to live your life in a righteous way. That's
Doesn't
why.
this sort of negate though what he said? First he says he's going to tell his son about the money, and then he gets his son there and he tells him all the things he has to do. And then at the end he says, but don't worry about it, I've left money for you.
But look at what he says, though. Do not be afraid because you're poor. You have great wealth if you fear God and flee from every sin. That's in the last line.
Yeah, but that's after listing 20 things he has to do.
Right. Yeah.
The shortcut is just fear God. Don't worry about all the other details.
Right. Except for write it down because otherwise you won't remember it.
And we can presume that the 10 talents of silver was not acquired from stolen wages.
There you go. Okay.
You know, my first wife told me that if you love God, you can do anything you want. How about that?
Okay. All
I
right.
wish my wife would say it.
And how did that work out, Don?
It worked out pretty well for a while.
Okay. All right. We're turning now to this sheet that was sent out yesterday. Chapter 5. So, Harold, would you like to read for us?
Okay.
That 5 that's there at the beginning, that doesn't mean verse 5. That's just when the cut and paste is left over from the beginning of chapter 5. It's
okay.
verse 1, though. Yeah.
Okay. Then Tobias answered his father Tobit, I will do everything that you have commanded me, father. But how can I obtain the money from him since he does not know me and I do not know him? What evidence am I to give to him so that he will recognize and trust me and give me the money? Also, I do not know the roads to Media or how to get there. Then Tobit answered his son Tobias, he gave me his bond, and I gave him my bond. I divided his in two. We each took one part, and I put one with the money. And now 20 years have passed since I left this money in trust. So now, my son, find yourself a trustworthy man to go with you, and we will pay him wages until you return. But get back the money from Gabael.
Okay. Complex system, maybe not so much. I know Richard's going to ask in a second, what about the interest, right? That's what you want to know, if he's getting interest on this, right?
Yeah.
But I think because it's silver, it's thought to retain its worth. Yes, Don?
I see a lot of anxiety in this
Yeah.
passage.
You mean on behalf of the son, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I can't, and I can't do it. And also, I don't know the way to go. Yeah.
Looks like he's trying to back out of it.
Yeah, who wants to go to Medea anyway? It's such a schlep, right? It's like going to Texas, So.
What's wrong with that?
Just
Everything.
yeah.
By the way, I don't hear anxiety. I hear he doesn't believe him, or he's going to say, how are you going to find somebody 20 years later? I mean,
Which is a form of anxiety also, I think.
Yeah.
It's trying to get out of it. It doesn't sound like he wants to go, right? He's got two things. So two things he doesn't, how's he going to believe me and how am I going to get there? And
oh, where's Medea? Would you want to go?
Yeah, I say it's a schlep. I told you it's a schlep. So I saw him say something about 2 days, There are maps in this book, whatever, but again, I'm not sure any of this really means anything from a historical point of view. Although to the readers, I guess they knew. But that's why I said Texas, or it's like going to Blythe. I'm not sure what it's like. Okay, so let's see how this is taken care of. Go ahead, Harold.
So Tobias went out to look for a man to go with him to Media, someone who was acquainted with the way. He went out and found the angel Raphael standing in front of him, but he did not perceive that he was an angel of God. Tobias said to him, where do you come from, young man? From the Israelites, your kindred, he replied, and I have come here to work. Then Tobias said to him, do you know the way to go to Media? Yes, he replied, I've been there many times. I'm acquainted with it and know all the roads. I have often traveled to Media and would stay with our kinsman Gabael, who lives in Ragus of Media.
All world.
It is a journey of 2 days from Ecbatana to Ragus, for it lies in a mountainous area, while Ecbatana is in the middle of the plain. Then Tobias said to him, "Wait for me, young man, until I go in and tell my father, for I do need you to travel with me, and I will pay you your wages." He replied, "All right, I will wait, but do not take too long."
Could have added, I will pay your wages on time. Right?
Okay. The bus leaves in half an hour.
Right, right. But this, miraculously, this guy is there, of course. But of course, we're not amazed because it's an angel. And unlike biblical stories that often will wait to tell us that the human being form is an angel, like the story of Abraham and the three that come towards it, it's not until later on in that first paragraph of that story where it goes from talking about the men to talking about God's presence, or with the story of Samson's parents and the appearance of the mysterious man there, or the story of Jacob wrestling with the angel. In all those cases, and probably more than I'm not remembering right now, in the beginning, as readers, as listeners, we think it's a man, it's a person, it's a human being. Only afterwards, oh, it was an angel. Here, the narrator wants us, I think, to view the father and son in such a way, don't worry, this is going to be all right. But now look what happens, right? He doesn't know it's an angel, but
Can you say a little more about the bond?
I don't know much about it. I think it's a document written by both, except for he took half of the other document. It's kind of like where in the movies where they rip a $100 bill or something and they can match it, that kind of a thing. I think, or two keys in the safe deposit box. It's
Okay.
it's that kind of a way of dealing with it. Um,
It's like a validation that it's a correct piece.
Yeah, yeah. As opposed to having a copy of it like that we would do today. You'd have a copy of signed by both people, right?
Yeah.
Um, so an interesting comment about he ripped it into two. So what were documents written on in ancient times?
Fortunately.
Papyrus?
Well, both are possible. Papyrus, mostly coming up from Egypt, and then at some point, documents were written on parchment, which is leather, right? It's not so easy to tear parchment. Easier papyrus. So he makes the comment very often papyrus. It's hard, but probably papyrus here, right? Which apparently is easier to rip and to tear. Uh, okay.
If it
Um,
was in the movies, it would have been like a stone tablet, which had you have to match them up with the two pieces put together,
exactly, right, exactly. Yes, yes.
and then the door opens.
And if it was today, it would be a very, very long code, alphanumeric code, right? Okay, Richard, why don't you, since you're enjoying this so much, why don't you read a little bit for us?
Where are we? Now
We're in verse 9.
9. Okay. So Tobias went to tell his father Tobit and said to him, "I have found a man who is one of our own Israelite kindred." He replied, "Call the man in so that I may learn about his people and to what tribe he belongs, and whether he is trustworthy enough to go with you, my son."
Right? So he's on his own, the son, but not entirely on his own. He's still under strict supervision of his father. There is something here of allegiance and loyalty to the tribe, to the people, to the tribe. You had last week the admonishment that that the son should not marry a non-Israelite woman. Interesting in this book that I've showed you a few times that I'm reading, I don't always find what I can share with you, but in this book that I got, which is a collection of papers that were given, I forgot when, in I don't know, 2009 or so, in Europe. Is one piece here on burial in the book of Tobit, another one on the theology, and hence I've brought that up from time to time. There's another piece here on what's the word for endogamy? Endogamy? Help me out. Marrying amongst your own people. And is it called endogamy? Ethnogamy? No, nobody.
No, I'm not sure.
Not marrying out, not intermarrying. The opposite of intermarriage is um,
Endogamy?
yes, endogamy. Is that a word that you folks are familiar with?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's endogamy. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only other word I can think of would be homogeneity within a population.
No, but that's describing the population. This is has to do with marriage.
Hmm.
Uh,
Okay, all right. Well, I don't see it here now, but marriage in the book 139. Oh, yeah, endogamy, endogamy. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So it's not only endogamy, marrying somebody, but also do you trust somebody from outside of the fold amongst the nation? And so his answer, the angel impersonating the person, is not only am I from your ethnic group, but I'm also from your particular tribe. Okay, go ahead.
Then Tobias went out and called him and said, "Young man, my father is calling for you." So he went to him, and Tobit greeted him first. He replied, "Many greetings to you." But Tobit retorted, "What is left for me to greet anymore? I am a man without eyesight. I cannot see the light of heaven, but I lie in darkness like the dead who no longer see the light. Although still alive, I am among the dead. I hear people's voices, but I cannot see them." But the young man said, "Take courage. The time is near for God to heal you. Take courage." Then Tobit said to him, "My son Tobias wishes to go to Media. Can you accompany him and guide him? I will pay you your wages, brother." He answered, "I can go with him, and I know all the roads. I have often gone to Media, have crossed all of its plains, and am all of its familiar with its mountains and all its roads."
All right. So interesting that it was his conversation with his son. He seemed kinder, didn't seem as bitter. And here with this person from the outside, who he calls brother, by the way, and not young man. I'm not sure what to make of that. We'd have to check the Greek and see if that's meaningful here. But trying to give us an indication of Tobias's speaking with others. Is that his insecurity that he calls somebody else a young man? I don't know. And he calls him a brother. But this bitterness, the people you see, somebody said, "Good morning," and they'll say, "What's good about it?" You know that, and that happened for 2 years in Israel. People, just all conversations were whatever you said, Boker Tov, Loko Kach Tov. It's not so good. And so his bitterness. But what is he in need of? Tobit is
Sympathy.
sympathy and healing and healing. And Raphael is the angel of healing, right? That
Ah,
now it comes up why he told us it was Raphael. Raphael, the word Rapha, the verb resh pei aleph means to heal, and so Raphael is the official angel of healing, as opposed to Michael, who is the official Michael, right? I guess you get archangel. Michael is the archangel, as the mighty one, the one of might. Yeah. I have a book, by the way, because angels become a big thing. Not only angels are pretty prevalent in apocryphal literature or in non-canonical literature, much more than in the Hebrew Bible itself, and they're in rabbinic literature, and then in medieval Jewish literature and Kabbalistic literature, especially. And I have a book, not sure where it is, but it's an index of angels and what they do, what each one of them do, and there are dozens and dozens of angels that
mm.
come up, and some of them are mentioned once, like in the Zohar in the Middle Ages, and some are mentioned multiple times. And but Raphael is the one known mostly as known for being the healer. Yeah.
But
Okay.
he hasn't spoken of his name yet, though, here.
No, no. We were told by the narrator that he's Raphael.
Okay.
Right? And Tobias calls him young man, and here
Yeah.
Tobit calls him brother.
Yep.
Don't know if that's significant or not. Okay. Shall we go on?
You want me to go on?
Yes, please.
Okay. Then Tobit said to him, Brother, of what family are you? And from what tribe? Tell me, brother. He replied, Why do you need to know my tribe and lineage? Are you seeking an employee or a tribe and lineage? But Tobit said, I want to be sure, brother, whose son you are and what your name is. He replied, I am Azariah, the son of the elder Hananiah, but one of your relatives. Then Tobit said to him, You are very welcome, brother. Do not feel bitter toward me, brother, because I wanted to be sure about your family. It turns out that you are a kinsman and of good and noble lineage. For I know Hananiah and Nathan, the two sons of the elder, well, whatever. And they used to go with me to Jerusalem and worship with me there. And they were not led astray. Your kindred are good people. You are of good stock. Welcome.
Huh. So a little disturbing that the angel is just making up a story here, right? To dupe him into trusting him. I don't know what to make of that. But the bottom line is, oh, Landsman, right? You're a relative. You're one of us. You're one of us. And I can remember, and that's what people do, right? All the time. We're talking about.
Which leads to a question. Here he is, he's flesh and blood. He knows his family, his father and brothers, we know them all, and yet he is an angel. So are we saying an angel is a human, someone in human form can be an angel, or what are we saying here?
I think that's what you're saying, is that an angel can take any shape or form that an angel wants to.
Including a specific person. Not just a guy, but the guy, right? I think.
Yeah.
But I think, Ajit, that my understanding of angels is they're extremely territorial. They're kind of set in a particular place. They don't cross over into another realm of another angel. They're not travelers that way.
I mentioned the fact that it's disturbing, perhaps, that he's lying like this. And Carrie Moore's, this is the commentary that I used to prepare mostly. Carrie Moore, who did a lot of the books in the Anchor Bible series of this period of time, of the late biblical period and apocryphal period. He did the additions to the books of Daniel and to Esther. He did Esther in the Anchor Bible. He may have done Daniel as well. In any case, he writes here, when he says, a son of the great Hananiah, a bold-faced lie that often disturbed commentators in the past, especially those who took the book literally and who expected angels to be angelic. We have certain expectations of angels, don't we? Yeah. Well, turns out there are times when you need to lie.
Are there other examples of angels or messengers from God lying?
Not that I can think of. I didn't see a comment by him either.
But David, you have Satan, who is a fallen angel, who's the master of deception.
But not in the Hebrew Bible, though. Yeah, in the Hebrew Bible, Satan has really only that one job of giving Job a hard time.
No.
I also don't like the fact that Tobit is willing to give this guy, because you're related to me, you're a good person. It isn't possible that anyone in my family could be a scoundrel.
Called tribalism.
Yeah, he doesn't test him, doesn't answer any questions, just assumes because he's a distant cousin that he would be trustworthy.
Question, of course, what does that mean to the people reading this at the time? How important is it for it to be family? I think there are cultures today, less so. Perhaps our world is less based on familial contacts, but business contacts. What is LinkedIn all about, right? LinkedIn is about who are your business contacts and who or from a professional point of view, from a social point of view, Facebook. You know, if you get a request to be somebody's friends, and I think I get one or two every day. So
Right.
if I have time, I feel I'm trying to, I'm waiting for the bus. Yeah, I don't wait for the bus, but I'll check and see who that person's friends are to see, do I really know them? Is this a hoax? Yes, go ahead, Rita Claire.
I was going to say that I honestly, myself personally, expect a little bit more from my family and relatives than I do from other people.
But do you trust them more as well?
Yes,
Good point. Good point. And even the ones you barely know who live in Ohio or Texas?
I do have relatives who live in Ohio and Texas. I don't know them though. It's been a
Okay.
long time.
All right. Let's see. Rita Claire, you want to read a little bit?
Sure.
We're in verse 12 at the verse 15 at the bottom of the page.
15. Then he added, I will pay you a drachma a day as wages, as well as expenses for yourself and my son. So go with my son, and I will add something to your wages. Raphael answered, I will go with him. So do not fear. We shall leave in good health and return to you in good health, because the way is safe. So Tobit said to him, Blessings be upon you, brother. Then he called his son and said to him, Make preparations for the journey, my son, and set out with your brother. May God in heaven bring you safely there and return you in good health to me, and may his angel, my son, accompany you both for your safety.
Which is kind of a clever hint here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Before he went out to start his journey, he kissed his father and mother. Tobit then said to him, Have a safe journey.
Yeah, it's nice that he mentioned that there's a mother in the picture as well. After all this father and son time, yes, mother she's in the kitchen stirring the soup or what, or the cholent? Okay, go ahead and finish it off for us, Rita Claire.
But his mother began to weep and said to Tobit, Why is it that you have sent my son away? Is he not the staff of our hand as he goes in and out before us? Do not heap money upon money, but let it be a ransom for our son. The life that is given to us by the Lord is enough for us. Tobit said to her, Do not worry. Our son will leave in good health and return to us in good health. Your eyes will see him on the day when he returns to you in good health. Say no more. Do not fear for them, my sister, for a good angel will accompany him. His journey will be successful and he will come back in good health.
So the
He's calling his wife his sister. What is this about?
yeah,
I mean,
I don't know. I need to look to delve down and see that the whole reference to people as brother, sister, young man. What does it mean in this context? Are these just regular things? I don't think it's just. I don't think it's like and a term of endearment we often use brother, right? When we talk
yeah.
men or sister, what has nothing to do with blood relations. I don't know. Interesting.
I think it's a poor translation.
Well,
I mean, really, the original could have meant woman instead of sister. I mean, I don't know.
um, so in
Just
so
doing
the
that
all
to
right.
keep us active in our thoughts, son.
Okay. So the in 4Q Tobit, which is a text, a fragment of Tobit from the Qumran caves, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the word is achoti, my sister. But
Mm.
it means, but he translates it as my dear. Achoti originally means sister, but it can be like the honey, dear. Like maybe that's how to use it, Ajit. Um, and also in the Greek, it's sister and brother. Yeah, and sometimes brother is a parallel term for lover or husband. Achoti kala, yeah. You have it in Song of Songs in biblical Hebrew. Sister is also a term for the beloved. So yeah, it's room. Yes, Megan.
I don't know if this fits here, but I worked in a psychiatric hospital for a while in the acute psychotic unit, and it was the nighttime, and there was a very small old black man sitting on the floor outside his room. Everyone else is asleep, and he says, "Good evening, sister." And I said, hi. And he said, how old are you, sister? So I told him, I don't know how old I was. I was in my 60s. And he says, that's great, sister. He said, would you like to hear a song? And I said, I'd love to. And so I sat down next to him, and out of this little man came Amazing Grace. It filled the whole, everybody else was bonked out on drugs, but he sang, and then he looked at me, he said, thank you, sister. I think I'll go to bed now. Turned around, went in, and went to bed.
I
So
think that was the angel Raphael.
I think it was Raphael, and for me and for the whole unit. And but I was sister the whole time. But
What
I
a great
didn't.
story.
I felt silly calling him brother,
Mm.
because it wasn't part of my culture. It was. It's part of his. So
Okay.
In
So,
in most Christian religions, they refer to one another as brother and sister. So I think it has more of a religious connotation to it.
so in Israel, in the last 20 years or so, or maybe 30, but not so much when I was younger, often people will see achi, achi, and you'll hear people use that as well today, right? People that want to show their know some Hebrew, they'll say to me, "Can yes, achi, achi, how are you, achi, my brother, my brother." I don't remember that though
Mm-hmm.
before the
Mm-hmm.
90s, before the aughts even. And then there's other terms, he could have been calling you Sister Megan because sister in many languages is the word for nurse that we use for nurse. Yeah, yeah, it is.
Or a nun.
Certainly in
Well,
African
that's why.
American,
we
Go
thought
ahead.
it was
Go
a
ahead.
nun. Yeah.
So let's just a second. So nun and sister, those are related because nuns were sisters of an order, and
I
that's
think
why
it was
in
just.
Europe.
It was in Raleigh, North Carolina. I think it was just his language,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
sister and brother, and all of that. But
Mm-hmm.
Less.
well, certainly in African American culture, there's a
that's what
lot
I
of
mean.
calling brothers and sisters. And Cornel West is always on the news shows. He's referring to somebody as my brother.
Yeah,
Even if he doesn't like the person, he says my brother. In
yeah.
fact, sometimes you think he's using it pejoratively. But anyway,
But that's
I
Cornel West, though.
Yeah.
right.
This guy didn't notice color, didn't notice anything, just noticed a human being walking by.
What a great story to end with today. I'm glad we finished the chapter. We'll
Mm-hmm.
begin with chapter 6, but please, yes, Harold.
Just one little comment. Right after my sister, Tobit says, a good angel will accompany him. And so all of a sudden, he's referring to him as an angel.
No, I don't think so. I think it's Tobit doesn't. Tobit wants that. Angels are not always seen.
Mm-hmm.
So in the same way that people, an angel's hovering above. An angel's a representative of the heavenly
Oh,
world.
so he's not referring to the guy who's going to accompany.
Well, it's a double entendre. We know that he really is an angel,
Right,
but
right,
Tobit doesn't know that that guy is an angel. I mean,
right,
that's
right.
that's the humor, that's the irony in the storytelling here.
So he thinks, so what Tobit is intending to mean is an angel, not this guy, but an angel will accompany the two of them.
Right.
Okay,
I
all
think so.
right.
I think so. Yes. Yes, Rita Claire.
I have a habit of when my children are traveling anywhere, I want them to let me know when they leave and when they get back, but mostly when they leave because I told them I need to wrap them up so that they'll be safe. Is that
Okay.
the same thing, that feeling that an angel is accompanying them on
Well,
their journey?
we will call you Rita L. You'll be the angel Rita. All right, everybody. Have a good weekend. Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you.
We'll see you next
See
week.
you all later.
Bye-bye.
Right.